It is the final day of March. Herb Stevens, a skiing weatherman, here for SnoCountry.com with a look at the weather coming up over the next couple of weeks in the western part of the U.S. and western Canada. This report, as always, is brought to you by UVEX Sports. The headlines read this way. The good news is we have a colder pattern developing in the west. There's no question about that. The big question is whether or not the Pacific is going to deliver the goods in terms of meaningful storms so that we can salvage at least part of this season with some fresh snow to play in. For now, things are quiet, and you can see that the bright pink here is a red flag warning. This has to do with winds and dry ground conditions more than anything else. And aside from that, and a winter storm advisory, a winter weather advisory here in the Snake River Valley, and another one out here east of Seattle. There's not much in the way of sensible weather that skiers and riders can get excited about. And the big part of that, or the big reason for it, is once again we have a huge upper level ridge covering the western part of the country. There is a little bit of onshore flow and a trough trying to impinge upon the coasts of Washington and Oregon. And what this system's doing, you can see how tightly these lines are packed together. It's windy out here in the northwest down into the northern Sierra, but there's just not a lot of precipitation associated with this system that's still offshore. Meanwhile, the inland ranges are going through one more warm day, but change is on the way. You can see on the surface map that the precipitation is depicted as not particularly heavy. The snow levels are going to be fairly low in the northwest over the next few days, and I think you're going to see anywhere from 6 to 12 inches of snow. On the higher slopes, the snow levels will be down 25 to 3,000 feet, maybe 3,500 feet. But the snow amounts will not be all that great. And many ski areas in this part of the world have already closed, giving up on this season, and who could blame them? But the upper slopes, say at Crystal, at Bachelor, and up into BC, up to Whistler, should get refreshed quite nicely between now and the end of the week, and that will certainly be welcomed. High pressure, the big blue H, is kind of calling the shots over the rest of the west. But if we look at the visible satellite shot, here's something I've talked about on several occasions this winter. These little curly-Q clouds you see out over the Pacific, these are known as open cell cumulus clouds. And what they indicate is there's some very cold air in the mid and upper levels coming down from the Gulf of Alaska, and this is a good sign, and it's going to lend a hand in terms of turning the entire pattern over the western United States colder during the course of the next several days and going on forward through the middle of the month of April. Now, the afternoon jet stream map on Thursday shows that a shortwave trough will have crested the ridge and come ashore in the northwest, and then it's going to dive southeastward. It's going to drag a surface cold front along with it. It'll bring some light snow to the Wasatch. It'll bring some light snow to the Tetons, but it's here in the Colorado Rockies that I think things would get a little more interesting as we go through Thursday. If we look at the surface map, it's important to note that with the spine of the mountains being right about there, we will have an upslope flow at the low levels going up against the Rockies, while we'll have a northwesterly flow at the upper levels, and those two flows will converge over the Rockies. So east of the divide, you could have as much as a foot of snow Thursday and a potential powder day on Friday. South of Interstate 70, the amounts will drop down. And west of the divide, I think you're looking at a more moderate snowfall on the 3 to 6, maybe 4 to 8 inch range. But in the cold air along the Rockies, there will be residual snow showers occurring to the north, up through Jackson Hole and Grand Targhee and on toward Big Sky during the day on Thursday and into Friday. Let's jump ahead to Saturday. Notice that the ridge is trying to build up again, so for most of the west, it's going to be a somewhat milder and drier weekend coming up. But you start to see a little more of the onshore flow here in the northwest, and there'll be some light snow continuing in these mountains through the weekend. We go ahead to Monday, and a more substantial system looks as though it wants to come ashore, and this bodes well for next week because I can easily see this system dropping southeastward and becoming more substantial by the middle of next week, and that could bring something in the way of meaningful snow to Wyoming and Utah and Colorado and perhaps northern Arizona, northern New Mexico as well, and certainly dropping down to at least the central Sierra as this thing progresses southeast. So that's potentially a good sign. And overall, the trough is going to be more favored in the west over the next 2 to 3 weeks than it has been for quite some time. So it might be a case of better late than never, but I do think the prospects for snow in the west are certainly improving as we go into April. It's a little harder to get the blockbuster storms once you get into the springtime, but right now we'll take any kind of powder day we can get. The GFS snowfall map over the next 7 days favors the northern Rockies. They've got that little shot in here on Thursday in the Colorado Rockies. Notice that the snowfall amounts are trying to get down to the Tahoe area. That's a bit of a toss-up, but the Canadian does bring more substantial snow down here to the mountains around Tahoe, and they have pretty much the same distribution that the GFS does, with the Cascades along the crests anyway, the peaks, getting some pretty good snow over the next 7 days. And again, there's that little bullseye for the Thursday event in Colorado. 7 days from now, notice there's a trough coming ashore. That's a good thing, and we'd like to see more of that. At 10 days of Canadian ensembles persists with the idea that in general a trough will be located over the west. Then it becomes a question of what short waves will come out of this trough up here by the Aleutians, and if we get a smaller scale trough to swing into the large scale trough, you might be able to deepen it and get a more substantial snowfall in the west. At least the opportunity is there, one that has been missing and sorely missed over the course of the last couple of months. Now, at 15 days, Canadian Ensembles is suggesting to me there's going to be more energy in the southern branch of the jet stream because the El Nino is still out here, and it's starting to spread its warmer water toward the eastern part of the Pacific, and that could also spell a favorable setup for some late-season snow in the southern part of the western United States. So overall, the pattern is turning colder aloft, but we're going into April and the sun's getting higher, and in spring you can slow it down, you can't stop it, but overall the things are more conducive to snow going forward the next 2 to 3 weeks. There'll be some light to moderate snows in the Pacific Northwest this week. A cold front will end the warm weather and bring some snow to Wyoming and especially central and northern Colorado coming up on Thursday. We do have a shot at a bigger trough next week, and the pattern in general will be more favorable right into the middle of April. Enjoy your sliding. I'm Herb Stevens, the skiing weatherman for SnoCountry.com and for UVEX Sports, and we'll see you next time.